Liquor store employees. What's the craziest instance of underage kids trying to get booze you've ever encountered? Story 1. 2 guys tried to buy drink. I asked them for their ID and they legit gave me their actual IDs. Like a vertical ID that had their dob clearly making them under 18. When I told them no, they were like, "Really, man? Can't you just be cool?" Like their whole strategy was to hope that the clerk would just be a cool guy. Hey, at least they were honest. Ha, I did this when wasted to get in a bar once, but I told the bouncer before handing in my ID, since wasted, that my 21st birthday was only like 2 weeks away. He said, "Thanks for your honesty," and let me in. It was a crowning achievement. On the other hand, I handed my ID to the bouncer less than 24 hours before my 21st. Pre-game went longer than expected. And we got to the bar around 12:05 a.m. on Friday morning, and I was turning 21 on Saturday. And he just looks at it and tells me to give him the $5 for under 21s. Oh, so many stories that I could tell you guys about me trying to get into clubs underage. Wait, what's the legal age in America? It is 21, isn't it? It's 18 here. So, yeah, 21, that just seems far too old to start clubbing. But yeah, basically, I used to like just use my friends' IDs and stuff. But once I borrowed my friend's ID to get into Wetherspoon, which is like the funniest place in England, by the way, for all Americans. It's like a proper, just rough, old little pub where it's really cheap and everyone just goes there to get wrecked. And I used my friend's ID. I think I was like 16 at the time and I lost it inside. So I ended up having to pay for her ID and then I got kicked out anyway. But yeah, there's so many more I could tell you, but I don't have enough time, unfortunately, gang. Story 2. At this gas station I worked in, this kid walks in. No way he's more than 16. He heads straight to the drink cooler as my co-workers and I stare incredulously. He grabs a 12-pack as he is approaching the counter and I ask, "Can I see your ID?" He looks at me in the eye and says, "Nope," drops a $20 on the counter and walks out. We weren't sure what to do after that because he didn't exactly steal anything, but we also couldn't just accept the money because that would be selling to a minor. I left it for my boss to figure out. Ballsy and cool as a cucumber. I like this kid. Story 3. At college, I worked at a liquor and drink place adjacent to a grocery store. Lots of regulars and people from the neighborhood. For several weeks, I'd been serving this one guy. Pleasant, polite, early 20s, 6'4", maybe 260 pounds. One day after he left, this older dude who was in Lime came up to the counter and said, "You know that kid's only 16, right?" I couldn't believe it. Apparently, he rotates from store to store until he gets caught. Sure enough, next time he came in, I asked for ID. He just said, "God darn," and he stormed out the store. I used to work at a store similar to a Walmart, and the rule was to ask anyone who looked younger than 40 for an ID. Here in Western New York, Wegmans Supermarket's card. Everyone, I'm 62 and have to show ID if I buy drink. Okay, so I think our rule here, like if you work in a shop that sells alcohol, or like a supermarket or somewhere, I think our rule here is like think 25. So if the person buying the alcohol looks under 25, then you ID them. But yeah, this is funny. This just reminds me, like, whenever I was younger, like going out on the town for a night out. Well, not actually on the town. We used to go to this field because I lived in like a small town. We used to go to this field in the countryside, by the way. We used to go to this field for like campouts, is what we called them. But we all basically just went there and got drunk and we were all really young. But yeah, I mean, it was great times and we basically just find adults outside of supermarkets and ask them to buy us booze. Some did and some absolutely kicked off, but yeah, that's how I got my alcohol when I was underage. Don't recommend. Drink sensibly. Story 4. So here's the thing. In Texas, if you get caught selling to a minor, you're personally liable for the sale. That means you get a criminal charge and a fine to pay. In addition to that, the store you work at can also receive a much larger fine or lose their license. There's no definitively legal form of ID, and it's up to the individual making a sale to determine not only if the ID is legal, but also if the ID is legitimate. So, to put it another way, the best way to discourage selling to minors is to take a minimum wage employee and make him responsible for it at the threat of $2,000. Unemployment and incarceration. Meanwhile, it's not illegal to attempt to purchase while underage. So the TABC, Texas Alcoholic Beverage Commission, likes to run stings. They'll get a person under the age of 21, usually the child of a cop, to attempt a purchase of an alcoholic beverage. In their defense, the child's usually very young, like 12, though they occasionally love to use a 20-year-old with grey hair. Well, one day I'm working and get a phone call from a neighbouring store down the road. They warned me they had a sting come through, so be aware. A few minutes later, this 10-year-old kid who can't see over the counter comes up and tries to make a purchase. "Nah, dude, gotta be 21. Kid leaves. Co-worker and I look at each other and are like, yeah, got him. Nobody has their lives ruined today. Woo! And here's where it goes crazy, okay? The cop in charge of the sting was in the line behind the kid, and he loses his poo. He's in my face with his badge, screaming at me and threatening to arrest me, demanding I tell him who tipped me off to the sting, saying it's illegal to refuse to answer questions and just generally making a huge scene in my store. Meanwhile, his kid's just standing alone outside. What kind of poo? You refused to sell to a minor so I could arrest you, so I'm going to arrest you. This is how cops act all the fricking time in the US, and then people wonder why everyone hates cops. Story 5. Not really crazy, but he came to the counter with a bottle of something, and I asked him for ID. His reply was something like, "Is this how you treat all your customers?" In some kind of tone like it was insulting to ask for ID. I said, yes. We both kind of stood there for a few moments, and he asked if I wasn't going to sell him anything. Not without ID. And then he walked out. This is hilarious. What was he expecting you to say? My sincerest apologies, sir. Please accept this bottle on the house as a token of my respect. May you bless us with your presence again in the near future. That is gold, to be honest, isn't it? Honestly, guys, the amount of people that will try their luck. Like, I get ID'd still to this day. I think I'll be ID'd till I might be fair. But I ain't complaining, hun. But yeah, people try their luck so much. Like, there's so many times where I've tried my luck. I'm like, please, can I just show you a photo of my passport on my phone? Because I'm terrible with forgetting my ID, like, to go out to places and buy alcohol, etc. But yeah, people were just so funny. Like, the fact that they think they're going to get away with it. Some people do, don't get me wrong. I've got quite old-looking friends, well, mature-looking. But it's just so funny the lengths that people will go to, like the extent to try and not get ID'd. It's jokes. Guys, have you ever gone to, like, any extreme lengths to not get ID'd? Like, have you asked people to buy you booze? Like, did you dress up, like, to try and make yourself look older? What was your excuse when they asked for your ID? I really want to know in the comments. Please like and subscribe if you've made it this far. I hope you'll enjoy the rest of this video and have a wonderful day. Story 6. I worked overnight at a gas station. Kid rolled in around 2 a.m. with what looked like a legit ID for being 21. But dude looked like a child. Also saw a cop car parked on the other end of the store when I went to check if it was a sting. I told the kid we can't sell alcohol past 2 a.m. Ended up screaming at me saying, "It's only 5 minutes past." Truth be told, it was just a cover to keep him from telling I wasn't going to let him buy it. I'm confused though. Does that mean if it were a sting and you sold it to them, would they still arrest you for that? Like, what if thought the person just looked youthful? It's called strict liability. Even if the person shows you ID that appears proper and authentic, it's irrelevant. Same thing when a 15-year-old you frick. Story 7. Worked at a liquor store right outside of the university I was attending. I had a dude come in. Had to be like 18 or 19. He comes up and gives me the ID of a guy I grew up with. I just started laughing. In college, we threw this big party that needed people to wear wristbands if they were 21 and up. I was stuck IDing at the door for a bit, and this girl comes up, and there's definitely no way she's 21, right? And sure enough, when it's their turn and her group of friends all get that eerie silence that underage people do when they're hoping to not get caught by a bouncer, she shows me her ID. It's my friend. Not just my friend, but my friend who had her purse stolen recently. I told her, "This isn't you," and she said, "Yes, it is." I said, "No, it isn't. This is my friend. Here's her purse you took." The entire group goes deer in the headlights, and she drops the purse and they all take off. She had like 15 IDs in the purse. Whoa. An habitual ID thief. Holy poo. I mean, working at the liquor store, I was given instruction from Ellie on how to spot fakes, but you're telling me this girl had a fat stack of real IDs? Dude, it just ain't worth it. Fake IDs. Now that rings a bell. That was a massive thing when we were younger as well, but I don't think it was as big as it was in America. Maybe I'm wrong, but I can't remember like all of us having fake IDs. I remember there was always that one random person that could like make the fake IDs for us. But other than that, I don't think it was like a massive project, like underground behind the scenes project going on. Or have I watched too many American movies? I'm not sure, but like, was it a big thing in America? I can't remember. But yeah, let me know. But yeah, it's fake IDs. And she had 15. Like, jeez. She's really onto something here. Story 8. I used to look quite young for my age in my late teens, early 20s. So quite often when I went to buy alcohol, back then it was 16 for drink and wine, 18 for everything stronger, but now it's 18 for any alcohol. I was told that they wouldn't sell to me because I was too young. Most times people would accept my ID or passport. Every now and then there was some back and forth before they eventually accepted. One person said he'll call the police. I told him to do it. I could wait. I wasn't doing anything wrong. Thankfully, when I started growing some facial hair, this all stopped quite quickly. I just turned 21 and I get some long stares at my ID, especially since it's an ID I got before I was 21, so it's vertical. In the US, if you renew after 21, it gets flipped to horizontal, so it's easier to tell. And I even got a few chuckles before handing it back, but I haven't had anyone accuse me of it being fake yet, okay? So guess it would be pretty dumb to get a fake that says I'm barely 21 and still vertical. When I was 18 to 20, I'd buy e-cigs and people would second guess my ID. Who the heck would get a fake that says they're 19 in the US? I got my horizontal license the day I turned 21. By the time I was 22, I lost 50 pounds. I clearly looked like a less fat version of my ID picture, but several times I had to prove I was myself by showing a second or even a third form of ID. Like one time a gas station wouldn't sell me a pack of cigarettes even after I, 1, said the correct address on my ID, and 2, showed them that the name on my ID matched the name on the debit card I was about to pay with, and 3, showed them a copy of my passport. They literally just didn't believe me. Lol, this actually reminds me, my ID looks nothing like me. I used to have black hair and I've got like mousy brown hair, just my natural hair now. But I dyed it black and that's still my ID photo. And I literally look like a young Russian, okay? I don't know why, but I do. And I always, the bouncers, well, the security guards, they always second guess me. Like they always take a second look. And I'm like, it's me. I've got my bank card to prove it, my passport, anything you need. And like they still question it. But it also reminded me of when I used to use people's fake IDs. When you had to memorize their date of birth and their address, I used to get so anxious before we would go up to the security guard that I'd forget their address and they wouldn't let me in. Oh, good times. This is making me nostalgic. Story 9. Worked at a drink store bar a few years back. 2 kids come in, look to be in their 20s. I wasn't behind the bar, so I'm only going on what was told to me, and sit at the bar. They called the bartender over and order, and she asked for IDs, which they present. She immediately sees something weird about the card and calls over our boss, the owner, who takes a look and is like, yeah, that's pretty fake. Before they can even look up, these 2 dart down the back hallway towards the private dining room in our storage warehouse. I see my boss, another bartender, and the store manager go running after them, and I go through the door on my side of the building, hoping to either cut them off or at least keep them from getting out through the warehouse. Eventually, they try to hide in an empty dining room, while the owner calls the cops and negotiates with them through the door. So eventually the cops come and agree to take them out the back door, not through the restaurant area. While walking through the lot, the one butthole had the balls to say, "Oh, that's my car over there, officer." Like he's gonna just drive home. The cop responds, "Oh yeah? Well, mine's just a little farther up, so let's take that one." As far as I know, that fake ID is still tacked behind the bar like a hunting trophy. Would you guys have called the cops if they didn't run? When I worked at bars, I'd just say better luck next time and give it back if they didn't run away. Nah, probably just like, come on guys, get the frick out. But it was the braziness to just sit at the bar combined with running and hiding that warranted it. And we weren't just a store. It was a step from being a full restaurant. They were intending to consume that booze on our premises. That would have gotten the business in a ridiculous amount of trouble. Story 10. Worked at a discount store at 18. We didn't sell hard liquor and the strongest alcohol was maybe 25%, but had certain drinks and only certain people bought them. In the UK, we have a strong Challenge 25 policy in store and Challenge 21 in pubs. 4-pack of 25% ABV shots for 99p. These were awful and the only people who ever bought them were people having a big party. Women between 25 to 50 heading on a night out, and children. Knockoff Alcopops, PS129. Only younger people ever tried to buy these. It was always safer just to ID and less really obvious milkshake liquor, 21%. PS2.99, disgusting as it sounds, I never ever served this to anyone who was obviously over 25, so it was always an ID job. These were the drinks every kid who ever come into the store would go for. They would take turns trying to get served, and often. This wasn't really an issue as some of them got clever and tried to buy normal groceries as though they were adults just out shopping. They'd get such random things, but they'd usually pay for them even without the alcohol. One time, one kid who tried many times bought a lot of groceries and then tried to put all the items back and get alcohol of almost an equal value, but slightly in the store's favour. When we caught him, we didn't know what to do as he was just a kid. He hadn't technically stolen financially and it didn't seem malicious enough to get the police involved. So my manager had him call his mum and dad. He said it was either them or the police. He chose the dad, who looked like an addict, who on arrival seemed more bothered about the inconvenience of having to come and pick his son up, was more annoyed at us and instead tried to buy the alcohol for him. While this is technically illegal, we usually let it sit, but this time we outright refused using the law as grounds. I'm taking a guess at B&M. Some of the rubbish they sell is truly awful, but geez handy for drinking games. Good educated guess. Some stores sell 40% stuff now, but a lot still don't. The milkshake stuff's called Sidekick, if I remember rightly, and is still going strong if you want to torture your guests. At first it's like, wow, this is great, but the more you have, the worse they get. Them shots don't seem to be there anymore, and the knockoff alcohops are VK. I think all have gone up in price since I worked there anyway. I only buy Foster's Radlers from there now when they're in season. Sidekick. I know exactly what you're talking about, and VK and WKDs, they were all like the popular drinks when we drink, like that we would get when we were younger. Or, if you're really rogue, we'd get like 2-litre bottles of something Jack. Oh, I can't remember, guys. It was basically like really cheap cider, like gut-rotting cider. That was so popular when we were younger. That's all we take to these campouts. So I guess I know what you mean by saying you'd know who to ID because of what they were buying, 100%. But I mean, sometimes we'd go all out and, get a little bottle of vodka. Like, you just never know. But yeah, White Lightning. White Lightning was what that cider was called. And guys, if you're from England, if you're listening to this and you're from the UK, please comment and let me know how, well, don't let me know because I know, but just confirm with the other listeners how rough that drink truly is. It's like drinking cat wee, genuinely. Story 11. Not a liquor store employee, but I was purchasing something at a liquor store. These 2 young women were checking out the same time as me and proceeded to have the following loud interaction. They tried to pay, and the cashier asked for ID. The girl paying says she doesn't have any on her, and the cashier's like, well, I need an ID, a license, a passport, just something. The girl says, well, I'm 19. We're in the US. The drinking age anywhere is 21. This is next level stupidity. Cashier says, now I really can't sell to you. Both girls are arguing with the cashier now, and the cashier's like, I'm not selling to you, and actually, you aren't even supposed to be in this store. The girls say people are shopping in here with their little kids, so why is that okay? And the cashier says the kids are here with their parents and being supervised. The not 19-year-old says, well, I'm 23. Sell it to me. If you're 23, why did you try to have the 19-year-old check out? The cashier says, no, I can't because you've already made it known that it's for the 19-year-old. At this point, the girls devolve into full-on whining. Please, but we came here all the way from town 30 minutes away to pick this up for a family party. You guys are the only ones who have it. Please, please, please sell it to us. It's just for our family. They're going to be so disappointed if we don't bring it back, please. It was so uncomfortable. And when I left, they were still begging and pleading with a manager. In college, I worked in a store that sold nicotine products, right? And this is par for the course. People tell on themselves all the time. On multiple occasions, I'd have 2 people come in together. One pick out all the items they wanted, and when I ask for ID, they point to their friend and say, oh, I'm only 17, she's buying it for me. They'd get angry and incredulous when I'd have to tell them, sorry, I can't sell this knowing it's for an underage person. You have to leave now. You'd think it might be a sting operation, but no, people really are this ignorant and stupid. Oh yeah, I know. 18 and in college. I got really into going to nightclubs. Some of the other students were interested and asked if they could go with me next time. I said, yeah, sure, just make sure you bring your ID with you. You cannot get in without it. Fast forward to the night and I double check before we leave again that everyone has their ID. They confirm that they do and we all pile into the car and make a half-hour drive to the club. At the door, everyone presents their license and state ID, except for one girl. All she brought with her is her university ID. Obviously, they don't let her in and she's stunned. But this is state-issued ID. It's valid ID from a state university. Why would this not work? I have to explain to her that security doesn't give a frick about what school you go to or your name. They need to know how old you are. She kept insisting that all I'd said was that she needed to bring ID, and she'd followed my instructions. I had to drive her all the way back to our dorm, pick up her license, and go back again. I'm not really surprised the 19-year-old didn't know better, but I was kind of surprised the 23-year-old didn't. Story 12. Not a liquor store employee, but a tale from the other side of the counter. When I was a teenager back in the 80s, I used to buy all the time, but just confidently walking up to the counter and handing the guy my ID when he asked for it, even though I was just 19 and the drinking age was 21. This was back before they had underage IDs with the different backgrounds. The funny thing was, it only worked if the cashier was male. If the cashier was woman, she'd invariably look at me with disgust and tell me I wasn't old enough and to leave. If the clerk was a guy, he'd invariably stare at my ID and you could just see the wheels in his head turning as he tried to do the math, until he'd just ring it up and give me my ID back. I did that for at least 3 years until I turned 21. Different ID for underage what? In the US, at least underage ID cards are laid out in a vertical format, while of age ID cards are horizontal. Gang, I'm not joking, okay? Listen, fake it till you make it. You guys know that's my saying by now, I think. Well, for my 3 loyal listeners anyway. Cheers, I see ya. And I think there's 2 others, but I can't remember your usernames and I'm really sorry. But I love you, okay? And thank you so much for commenting. But yeah, fake it till you make it. If you're in there acting like you're of age, like you know what booze you're getting, pick up a couple beers, couple Stellas, bottle of wine maybe if you're feeling bougie, you're more than likely going to get away with it, hun. You know, other than like a girl showing off her bits or a man with a shirt undone picking up a WKD or like a sidekick as we've been talking about. Do you know what I mean? Like it's true, gang. Fake it till you make it. By the way, I have been that girl going into a shop with like her female body parts out, trying to win over the people behind the counter, and didn't work, okay? Story 13. When I worked at Publix, they would do stings at other locations to ensure compliance and would always use underage employees. i.e. me, to do it. The problem was I'd never had alcohol and also was 5'9", £120, so when I awkwardly walked up to the counter to try and purchase Jack Daniels, the clerk and another customer saw me, looked at each other and just started laughing their bums off. I was too embarrassed to even try to convince him and walked out of there dejected. They never asked me to go on Sting again. That's adorably sad. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe for more videos coming daily.